Episode 28, Mark Teich, actor and comedian.
I'm really excited today. I'm joined by another Mike. Mistake. That's going to the blooper. I'm Mark Graben. This is My Favorite Mistake. In this podcast, you'll hear business leaders and other really interesting people talking about their favorite mistakes. Because we all make mistakes, but what matters is learning from our mistakes instead of repeating them over and over again. So this is the place for honest reflection and conversation, personal growth, and professional success. Visit our website at myfavoritemistakepodcast.com.
This is episode 28. You can find links and more at markgraben.com/mistake28.
And now, on with the show. Well, hi, welcome to My Favorite Mistake. I am the mistake-making Mark Graben, and that took some thought to not stumble through that. This is actually take two. I'm joined today by another Mark Teich. I called him Mike the first time through. Mark Teich, I'm going to introduce him, and we're going to have a lot to talk about today. A little bit of background. He's worked for more than 20 years as an actor, comedian, writer, director, stage, TV, and film. Before I give you a little bit more of his resume, we actually both graduated from the same high school, ye old Winston Churchill High School in Livonia, Michigan. So pretty cool. It's great to be able to do a podcast with you, Mark.
It's great. It's great. Thanks for having me, pal. This is a lot of fun. I mean, it's been, God, I mean, the last time we really had a chat was at the 10-year reunion. I don't
think I made the 10-year, so maybe the 5-year.
Well, then I was hammered, and I thought you were there. That's
the 10-year reunion. Like, this gets off on a gloomy note, but because of 9/11, I couldn't.
9/11. That's right.
For that,
that's right.
Right after 9/11. So help me segue.
Yeah. No, it was. It's been a while. Yeah. So it has been a while. That's right. I for some reason I happened to be in Michigan right during that time, because I was in New York during 9/11.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So we ran in different circles. So Mark was in, I think it's fair to say, the highly acclaimed CAPA program, the Creative and Performing Arts Academy at our high school. I ran more in the geek, math, science, computer program circles, but I'm used to looking up at Mark. I look up to Mark because I was literally in the pit orchestra.
That's right.
For at least 4 high school musical productions where Mark was up on stage, and
not one of them was Brigadoon, so I wasn't wearing a kilt. And if you were looking up, you would have seen everything and then some.
Would have not a mistake. No,
scarred for life. More scarred for life than a mistake.
Yeah. And I'm going to try to be funny with a professional comedian, but if I remember right, Mark was voted in the yearbook most likely to lose his hair and dance like MC Hammer in a Hallmark Cards TV commercial. Like, that was strangely specific.
Very specific, and a lot to live up to. I really had to it was almost Marty McFly-esque that I had to start planting seeds as I was going through to the industry.
Well, and I'm glad you unlocked that life accomplishment. And
thank you.
There are times randomly where I will see Mark on my television. So before all of that, give you a little bit more of his background. He honed his improv skills in Chicago and New York. He was in famed troupes like the Second City and Upright Citizens Brigade. Had a highly successful comedy career, culminating in 4 certified gold CDs, a certified gold DVD, 2 Comedy Central Presents specials. So I've seen, and people may know of the stuff you've done with Stephen Lynch.
That's right. Yeah.
Singing together, great stuff. He also sold out Carnegie Hall.
I think sold out might be stretching it a little bit. I'm sure there was somebody giving out those last few tickets up at the top, but you Carnegie Hall nonetheless. Yeah, but Carnegie Hall nonetheless. It was pretty amazing.
So Mark has been in 4 Disney cable shows, like flipping channels in a hotel room. I normally skip past Disney Channel and there's Mark playing the principal.
if you stayed on those channels as you're alone in a hotel room, this podcast is over. We have to stop this podcast.
Cancel my podcast. But he has also been seen in shows like Monk and New Girl, the movie Leatherheads, and again, the commercials. So this happens a lot. I'm sitting there watching football. Here's Mark in a Little Caesars ad. He's done ads for Dell, Subway, IHOP, Fidelity Investments. And then there's the, I think, would you say the Hallmark commercial is the,
I think the Hallmark, we did a Hallmark commercial, gosh, probably about more than 12 years ago. And it was voted funniest commercial that year, and it had won some awards, and it was a lot of fun. So much so that, well, this is, you mentioned IHOP, so I'll give you a twofer.
Yeah.
So much so that if you look up on YouTube, you look up Hallmark Hammer, you can see me as MC Hammer going through the motions, and I could dance all those moves. I was the only guy in LA that had like that dad look, the young dad look, that could dance. So much so that I didn't even get to go to the callback, and the guys that were at the callback knew me, and one of the guys was just like, "Hey, just let Teich do this, okay?" And so they ended up hiring me for that, just based off of everybody else's frustration. But my point is, the IHOP commercial and the Hammer commercial, both commercials, on YouTube, you can find in the comments that either people think that my head was superimposed onto a black man's body for the MC Hammer commercial, or they just thought I was a black person. In the IHOP commercial, I was completely painted like a coin in this commercial, and people thought it was racist that a black guy was going in silver face. And then one of my students kept typing into the YouTube channel going, "I know this guy. He's a white guy. He's a white." No, wait, you guys. It was the funniest thing. So, I guess I'm loved by, or hated by just people that don't know what my body looks like. I didn't know how to end that part. Yeah. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. So, people can Google that.
People can Google that. How about that? That's a good ending.
Not what your body looks like part, but the commercials.
I'm sure if you look hard enough, you'll find something.
And Mark is also currently starring as Uncle Vin in a series called The Finchers, presented by ViewSonic. We'll talk about that later on. There's kind of an interesting hybrid sitcom commercial endeavor.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. It started off as one thing, and now it's kind of turned into this thing that's way bigger than me. I mean, but it's crazy. I mean, even here, hold on. All right, so this is the New York Times here.
Yeah.
And
gloomy 2020, looking back, and then
this was the full page article, thing in the New York Times.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean,
be careful with the open robes. That'll get you canceled too.
Exactly. Or it'll get me more seasons. I don't know. I'm hoping it's more of a Boogie Nights thing than than a Lebowski thing. So.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. But thanks for accepting the invitation here, because I saw Mark is doing a press promo tour, and I hope this isn't a mistake. This is like your crappiest promo.
No, it's literally a mistake. I mean, you wanted it to be a mistake, so we're making it all happen. So it's all a giant tie-in to the mistake that is my life. So yes,
life is but a series of mistakes.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
So on that note. Mark, what would you say? I mean, of all the different mistakes that we all make, I've made a couple already today, but like, what's the most meaningful? What would you consider to be your favorite mistake?
Oh gosh. I think it was my choice to be, initially to be a follower than a leader. I think that was, if I can really generalize it, and then we'll kind of break it down.
Yeah.
I think I had that. And you might not have gotten that in high school from me, because I know that even me looking back, I was coming across more of a confident person and a leader and everything, but I was always looking to follow in the footsteps of something, whether it was my best friend from back in the day who was a couple years older than me, that I was kind of like, okay, I see his path and I like that path. Mm-hmm. What if I just kind of continue to do what he's doing and that? So it's, I think that's the case for a lot of people. And I think some people might think that's just emulating people that you admire, or, a hero, or, for comedians, you always get your voice from imitating other people's voices, of people that you admire. And, but I think if I would have stayed more on the track of really looking within mm-hmm. and out, I think it would have been a different path. That being said, and I'll tell you this, I don't know if you feel this way, and I don't know if the 10 other people that are listening to this right now feel this way, but I always feel, for the most part, I was at the right place at the right time for what I was doing. Mm-hmm. Like 1988 to 1991, Churchill High School, there have never been better years of that high school than the time that I was at that high school. For some reason, I feel that way. Like, mm-hmm. like we did some great stuff at that point in time. And I look back at particular years of things, and I was like, oh, I was at that place during that time. Mm-hmm. I'm really lucky. And I'm all about, chalking that up to being completely delusional and going, well, that just, sure, that was a great time for you, but it might not have been a great time for anybody else. But yeah, you're asking me the question. So yeah. Why wouldn't I say that? So I feel
but there were a lot of really talented kids in that high school.
I agree. I agree. And I got to work with a lot of those talented people. And then, the professional theater that I was doing outside of high school during that time. I mean, I was in a group in high school. It was a children's theater group in Detroit, and it was called the Peanut Butter Players, and it was Detroit's #1 family entertainment. And people in that cast, one was Danny Gerwin, who was in multiple things on Broadway. Another was Celia Keenan Bolger, who just won the Tony for Sorkin's new Kill a Mockingbird. Mm-hmm. The other was Sutton and Hunter Foster. Sutton Foster is on Younger, and she's won multiple Tony Awards. Hunter, her brother, the same thing. He's done multiple things on Broadway. Mm-hmm. Me, I'll put myself in that category. And there was a whole bunch of other talented people. There's this guy Ian. He's got the lead on a Disney. Well, he's the dad on a Disney Channel show mm-hmm. right now as well. So it's amazing. Like yeah. I just happened to be lucky enough to be around those people.
Judy Greer was a couple years behind.
Yeah, Judy was a year younger than we were.
Yeah,
and Judy was Judy Evans back then.
Right.
Now it's Judy. And now it's Judy Greer. And Judy Greer's killing it. Yeah. Killing it. Right. She's so famous. She's in my friend's wife's sewing circle that they do on Zoom now, or knitting circle. They're knitting. They're not sewing. I've gotten some shit from.
Well, it says on your website, when we get back to your story, that you're that guy from that thing. Well, she mm-hmm. been for a while that woman from that thing. Like, and
absolutely.
She pops up everywhere, and now people I think know her name more often. But so you had some great examples, right? So I mean, when you talk about admiring and emulating people, that doesn't sound so bad on the surface, but you kind of allude to, well, at some point you kind of realize, well, maybe that you had your own path in you, or tell me more about that.
Yeah, but I only think from experiencing that, I want to see, it was a safety net for a lot of things, because if you've got, like, I'll go back to my best friend. He was going down that theater path, the music theater path, the performing path. He was 2 years ahead of me. So that is, if you look back at it, that is a great, you go first let me see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fall into some pit of despair, at least that won't happen to me, because I'll see from your mistakes what's happening from those things. So I was looking at it from that kind of perspective. And now looking back, I think that was a little bit more fear-based than smart. Being oh God, I'm just using the word smart and then can't figuring out the words. But I don't think that was the smartest thing for me to do. I think taking the risk and taking the chance and would have made my choices and my decisions a little bit more fruitful.
Mm.
Even though
it was
champagne problems. Yeah, go ahead. What were we going to say?
No, it was safer to follow
yes.
someone else's examples.
Of course. But I mean, how would I even possibly know that at the time?
Yeah.
Versus, just kind of looking at that. So I think that's more of I don't chalk that up to a regret, because that's what I was going to say before. These are all champagne problems, because I've had and continue to have a incredibly interesting, mildly successful career where, and looking back, if I really want to look at it with other people, comparison wise to other people, I've lived more lives than I should have been allowed to. How about that? Because I've gotten to do some fun stuff so far.
So what do you think would have been the turning point of, as you said, to follow your own path and not follow, or when did you start carving out your own path?
I think it wasn't until I was almost through my 20s. Mm-hmm. I think I was coming upon 30, and it was because I was getting pushed. I'm happy about it, but I was really hurt and kind of resentful for it. My Stephen Lynch, who's one of my dearest best friends, and he and the ringleader of all that music. I mean, I definitely have a small hand in it, but it was his baby, and that's great, and I'm happy to be a part of the whole thing. But at the same time, he knew that, just like some proud grandmother, he knew that I had it in me and I could do a lot of stuff on my own. I didn't have to rely on him or his coattails to kind of propel myself forward. And it was, he didn't end things, but he kind of cut the cord a little bit. Like, this is my thing. This is your thing. I love that we're doing our thing together, but really look into your thing as well.
Yeah.
So, and then I just like any person that's been dumped, I changed my hairstyle and moved away. So,
the hair changed.
The hair didn't change. I was,
Yeah.
But at that time I'd already lost all my hair. So, yeah. And so I moved to LA, and I was lucky enough to work with one of my buddies, my friend Lance Barber, who plays the dad now on Young Sheldon, who was also Pauly G in The Comeback, which is Lisa Kudrow's thing, which is awesome to watch, but super, super uncomfortable to watch. He's in that, but his manager, Joel, brought me on, and we worked together for about a year, and it was a nice, good start. And I kind of got my legs out here, and then, I've bounced around to different representations and different managers, and I've got people that I've worked with and had good relationships with, and people that we no longer work together, but it was like a handshake or a high five, and we're like, glad we got to do this. So
yeah. Luckily
for me, I've kept my nose pretty clean. I don't have much or any bad blood in this town, which is nice.
Yeah. You stayed off of TMZ.
I did, and with, TMZ is the most that's the most dramatic show of every show on television. The way that they're spinning everything. I think it's awesome. That's a completely other side of the business that I had no desire to be a part of. I mean, the whole fame thing. Yeah. Did you ever want to be famous?
No, I mean,
ever?
No. I wanted to accomplish things, but nowadays, I mean, there's my adaptation of the old Andy Warhol-ism of everyone has 15 minutes of fame. I think now everybody is famous to 15 other people. So from writing books and doing podcasts, I'll go to a conference and I'm famous to somebody.
Sure.
And they're excited to meet me. And they might be looking at me from across the room and afraid to come over and say hi. But then I'm feeling that exact same way about someone else in the room.
Oh yeah. And that's great.
Within professional circles. And so I've learned, to be gracious, when people say nice things and not say, no, I mean, it's just thank you. And I appreciate that. And so I think there is that little component even within my circles of dealing with quote unquote fame.
Sure.
I hadn't really thought about it.
Yeah. It's as long as you keep the other person involved in the whole thing versus them just shouting praise at you.
Right.
If you bring them into the fold and make it a little bit more human, then that's the best thing you can possibly do. Because when Stephen and I were at our height of that and we were touring around the world and everything, and these people would come up to us and just, and it's, to you, it's to the person that they're coming up to, it's kind of unbelievable. And you're just like, why are you in this much awe of what we're doing? But as long as you make them human and they start talking to you, everything kind of subsides and it's nice.
Yeah. I mean, when I've met, they say sometimes don't meet your heroes, and I've met some professional heroes, and the nicest thing, and I'll try to pay this back and emulate it when I'm in that position, is when, they ask sincere questions about you. Yeah.
I think that's the smartest thing that you can do.
And, and the questions are not, which of my books did you like best? That's not a good example.
I would only hope that you'll do that callback to me when somebody comes up to you and we happen to be together and you absolutely do that to the person that comes up to you at that time.
No, it's more likely when things get back to normal. If we're out for a drink, someone's going to recognize you. But no, I mean, we put odds on that. I mean, it's possible.
With this beard and these glasses and this hat, nobody can recognize me at this point. I am a walking disguise, clearly.
So in the entertainment realm, I mean, I guess there are potential mistakes in interacting with someone coming up and fawning over you. But I'm curious, for anyone who does sales, so like as a consultant or, you're competing against others and you may have to go give a presentation, and we don't call it an audition. Right. But it seems like, you hear of actors of going through these audition cycles, and there's a lot of rejection. And I was curious if you could talk about that. And do you often feel like, well, you didn't get a role because of some mistake you made, or it's just you can't get every role?
I'll put it this way. I mean, you can get every role. There are odds that you can get every role. You look at and there's always a unicorn. There's always going to be a couple unicorns here and there, and they're unicorns for a reason. Because they're freaking magical. Donald Glover is a unicorn. He's a unicorn. He's an amazing talent that went and was like, oh, I'm going to try this. And he writes it down, and all of a sudden he does stand up, and he's better than people that have been doing stand up for 30 years.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I'm going to try this. And he does music, and you're like, wow, how, so yes, you can get every job. That being said, it's just like sales, just like writing, just like anything. The entertainment business is exactly the same of all these other things, except like what you said, people recognize you more because, because your dumb face gets on the newspaper or you're on TV or something like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to getting the job and getting auditions, the best thing that you can do is exactly the same thing that you would do in a presentation in sales, or putting your heart onto the page when you're writing or something like that. As long as you're doing that versus not doing it, in your heart of hearts, when you go to an interview or a meeting or an audition, and you're not into it, hungover. So, like whatever that thing is. And if you walk out of there and you're like, oh yeah, I totally put my best foot forward. Well, you're either telling yourself the truth or you're lying to yourself at that point in time. And the best way that I can describe it is when I was doing Leatherheads, George Clooney was directing, and he'd written the whole thing, and we'd have a lot of downtime. I was one of three guys. So we're barely in the movie, but it was me and Mike O'Malley, who is in a ton of stuff.
Yep.
And then Christian Stolte, who is like the older guy on Chicago Fire now. And so it was the three of us kind of playing, but we'd have a lot of downtime. And in the downtime, everybody would want to come over and hang out with us because we'd just be bullshit the whole time. And so Clooney would come over to us, and then the guy that played the editor was like this old, awesome dude. And he had this, I mean, like my beard doesn't even do his beard justice. He was like this magical being. And he would give us all these tips of wisdom. And he goes, this is how auditioning is. It's like house money. Do you know what house money is in Vegas? Yeah. So in Caesar's Palace, you get Caesar bucks for getting there, and you get $100 worth of Caesar bucks. Where can you spend those Caesar bucks? Caesar's Palace. Right. You can't spend them anywhere else, right? Can't do it anywhere else. So if you go to a blackjack table, you put $100 down of Caesar bucks, and then you win another $100 on top of that. What have you won? You've won that $100, plus you still get your Caesar bucks back. And until you lose all that Caesar bucks, you haven't really lost anything, right?
Yeah.
So when you go into the audition is somebody giving you those monies to go into that audition. For some reason, somebody wanted you to come into that room. And getting into that room is harder than anybody thinks it is, because there's thousands of people that they look through. And then the agent does submissions, and then there's hundreds of people that are doing through that. And then there's, 100 people auditioning for the role. So when you're going in there, everybody wants you to do well. I think people get too caught up in movie culture where there's some hand-wringing evil person that wants you to F up.
Yeah.
For the most part, everybody wants you to do well. In a TV show or a commercial thing, they want you to do well so that they go, fine, finally, he or she gets it, and they seem cool enough that we can hang out with them. In a business meeting, it's the same thing. Great. He or she's saying exactly what we were hoping that they would say, that we could get this done and we can get the heck out of there. I'm paraphrasing it a little bit, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think,
process and
right.
Being invited to that pool there are parallels in business. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you're spending that money, if you're putting all that money out there, that effort, that, thing to get in there, to spend it, then when you walk out, the only thing that you can win from that is the job. You're not walking out of there going, oh, I messed up or something like that. You put all that money down that they'd given you, that money down. I hate using quotation fingers, but that money down, and you've done everything that you can do. If you've done that and you're not lying to yourself, then you haven't made a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been in the position where I've put down 80%. I've put down 60%. I think people have been in that. And the only one that's to blame is you for that. And I think that's the biggest thing. And luckily you get it. That muscle starts to grow, and you know how to use it. You know how much to flex it. and you work it. It's all finesse after that. So yeah.
Wow. So our guest again is Mark Teich. He is the author of the new self-help book, You Can Get Every Role.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I want to. Hopefully, when you're doing this, a little graphic pops up right here, and
We'll mock something up.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about graphics in presentations. I'm sure one other thing I may have pestered you on Facebook about this, but I was at, I think it was the Lean Startup Conference.
Okay.
Somebody, very serious kind of California, Silicon Valley type event, and somebody was giving a talk, and all the slides are just pictures to illustrate some sort of point. Well, there you are in I think it was a stock photo of you in a suit and tie, or I don't know if it was a clip from some program. I guess if you posed for stock photos, you would know that. Or
I would know it. I'm sure it probably wasn't a stock photo. It was probably something that he had just pulled for this presentation. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should ask him for a residual.
Yeah,
because he used me in the presentation.
That's their mistake for not.
I mean, did you pay to go? Did you pay to go there?
I did.
Well, then I am clearly owed some money.
We'll talk to your representation, but maybe it was a grab from a commercial.
Yeah, it probably was.
Like you were sitting in what looked like a boardroom in a shirt and tie.
That's and once again, champagne problems. That's one of 20 spots I've done where I am the flustery, blustery, shirt too tight, tie only going down to his nipples boss.
In your clip reel, that is sort of a thing for you. The tie that only comes down. It's the way too short tie.
It's I mean, why be that burly 128 that I was in high school when I can blow up to a festive 190, and by 190 I probably mean about 205. So.
Speaking of making it big, I'm talking work, not size.
Fat. Yeah, I get it.
But we do see a lot of you in the Finchers, and again, like that robe, you got to keep that robe.
Oof.
Playing. Go ahead.
For wardrobe though, it's pretty sweet because if all I got to do is throw on a robe every day for this thing, God bless, I love it.
Yeah. So tell us more about the Finchers and what how that came to be, and that's an interesting project.
It's definitely an interesting project. If you want to see it, I'm sure you'll mention it, but it's at thefinchers.com right now. ViewSonic. Well, there's always been a corporation behind TV and film. I mean, TV was invented for the purposes of advertising. It wasn't invented for entertainment. So ViewSonic, which is a monitor company. So back when we were kids and we were buying our Apple IIe, you didn't have to get an Apple monitor. You could get a ViewSonic monitor. You could get any of these things. This company's been around forever. And they started by selling monitors to the general public, and then they started going into businesses, and then they became this $1 billion company. And so they didn't have to sell to regular people anymore. Mm-hmm. And once this whole pandemic hit, they were like, oh, we can start selling to the people again. And they have these amazing monitors that are all like incredible, like touchscreen type stuff. It's, if you haven't seen some of the stuff that they have, it's ridiculous. Like even their projectors, these streamlined projectors that if you've got a blank wall in your house, it looks better than any flat screen. So
in that first episode, like the product integration.
Yeah. So they're doing a lot of
those projectors.
Yeah. So they were doing a lot of product integration, and they're creating a sitcom around the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And at first I think it started like, oh, this is kind of a cute thing. And now they are just pushing the envelope. They're just going, let's see how far we can go with this and see if somebody really grabs onto it. So for that, it's been a lot of fun. And I play the wacky uncle. Yeah. So I can't complain. I live out in, an area similar to Topanga Canyon. Mm-hmm. Very hippy dippy, Topanga is where Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa live. They love their turquoise, and they love their teeth that they found by the beach or something like that. Hopefully not human teeth.
Right.
But yeah, stuff like that. So and I have a yurt, and a ferret, and I don't wear many clothes.
So the Finchers.com and I've been able to watch some of this online, but we say it may really turn into something like one of the hyped comedies, Jason Sudeikis and Ted Lasso. That started off as a series of 30-second commercials for NBC. And
dude, I've known Jason forever. I mean, when I was coming up in Chicago, he came in a little bit after me, and even though he was a legacy, he was, he's George Wendt's nephew, but he's nobody ever knew that. I mean, he came in like a house on fire. He was amazing. And then some of all of our buddies that we have in common, like if you've watched Ted Lasso, the guy that plays his other coach, Brendan is an old friend of all of ours, and they kind of conceptualized this whole thing with I believe a writer from SNL named Joe Kelly, and it was all based on those commercials. And have you watched the season?
I've just seen the first 2 episodes.
Dude,
I'm going to binge it over the holidays.
It's so good. It's so good, and it's like it's heartbreaking, and I'm such a sucker for crying at acts of charity. Whether it's to a person that they've always wanted to do something, and that type of charity. Oh man, just crying my eyes out.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah. So this has been a lot of fun to hear some of your perspectives, Mark, on, like you say, a very interesting career and great things that you've done. Our guest has been Mark Teich. His website is markteich.com.
Yep.
You want to see more of his work?
Yeah, I think that's it. And Instagram, I'm Mark Teich 111. And you can check all that stuff. I'm sure he'll have the spelling of my name, because it's absolutely impossible to spell from there. I appreciate you having me on. This was fun, dude.
I appreciate you accepting the invitation. That was a lot of fun. So again, check out thefinchers.com, markteich.com, Teich, the pride of Churchill High School, Livonia, Michigan.
Right back at you, kid. Right back at you.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening. I hope this podcast inspires you to pause and think about your own favorite mistake and how learning from mistakes shapes you personally and professionally. If you're a leader, what can you do to create a culture where it's safe for colleagues to talk openly about mistakes in the spirit of learning? Please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Our website is myfavoritemistakepodcast.com. See you next time.